Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION's Climate Tracker with me, Priyanka Sharma. Our top story today comes from southern Philippines, where at least 54 people have been killed in a landslide that hit a gold mining village. Authorities say 63 others are still missing. The landslide hit the mountain village of Masara in Davao De Oro province on last Tuesday night after weeks of torrential rain. The landslide happened near a gold mine bearing homes and vehicles that were ferrying employers to the site operated by Apex Mining. As per officials, more than 300 people are involved in the rescue operations, but they have been hampered due to heavy rain, mud and the threat of further landslides in the region. Nearly a week after the incident, the search is still ongoing. Officials say it is unlikely that there are any more survivors, in fact. Earlier, a 3-year-old girl was pulled alive from under the rubble in what rescuers described as a miracle. More than 1,100 families have been moved to evacuation centers. Rain has pounded parts of southern Philippines for weeks now, triggering dozens of landslides and floods. These have forced tens of thousands of people into emergency shelters. Earthquakes have also damaged houses and buildings in the region in recent months. Landslides are a frequent hazard across much of the archipelago due to the mountainous terrain, heavy rainfall and widespread deforestation. Let's move on now. Climate activist Greta Thunberg has joined a protest in southwestern France against 8 planned oil wells, which in theory will be banned in the country by the year 2040. The protest group says the exit from fossil fuels must begin now by rejecting the project.
No more fossil fuel energy extraction projects, neither here nor elsewhere. The transition is starting now. All the arguments, it's now. We must move away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible. This exit must start today by refusing this project.
The group opposes oil drilling in the area around one particular seaside resort. It claimed that about 3,000 people showed up for the protest, but the police said there were 1,200. Swedish activist Thunberg made an appearance at the demonstration. She didn't speak at the anti-oil protest, but danced and shouted slogans against the fossil fuel industry. The wells would be drilled by Canada's Vermilion Energy. The project is yet to be approved, and opponents are hoping to block its authorization. In 2017, the French government voted to stop domestic oil production by 2040. But in December, the country's ecological transition minister had said that as long as France needs oil, it is not so bad that it comes from there instead of the other end of the world. Let's move on now. 2 climate activists threw soup at Monet's springtime painting in the Beaux Arts Museum of Lyon. They claim that the move is to highlight climate emergency. The activists belong to an environmental group that had already claimed responsibility for a similar action last month against the Mona Lisa painting in Paris. Take a look. Hundreds of private jets flew into Las Vegas for the Super Bowl on Sunday, and environmentalists are now calculating the climate cost. The 4 airports in Las Vegas area have about 500 parking spots for private jets, and they are all fully booked. They were all fully booked, in fact, ahead of the game. One of the highest profile expected attendees of the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift, attracted global backlash for her private air travel yet again. The popular singer-songwriter is frequently listed as among the most prolific private jet users. This week, Swift threatened legal action against a student who has been tracking her jet usage. An NGO, Transport and Environment, estimates that private jets emit 5 to 14 times more pollutants per passenger than commercial aircraft and about 50 times more than trains. The cost in emissions is steep for private air travel across shorter distances as well. In Europe, high-speed trains operate along most of the popular intracontinental private jets routes. But in America, which has far less robust rail infrastructure, this is less of a readily available alternative. And in recent years, private air travel has surged both in the US and abroad. The impact of climate change on Morocco's food security and the global food system is undeniable. Drought and other adverse climate conditions have spelled another poor year for cereal production in Morocco. Moroccan wheat farmers usually prepare for spring harvest around this time, but this year fields lay unusually bare. The country is grappling with its 6th consecutive year of drought. Lands which once used to yield soft wheat and barley are now lying barren. According to Morocco's Agriculture Ministry, more than 88% of the Bereshit province's vast agricultural lands are not irrigated. Rain is the only means to water their fields. Unfortunately, the North African country has seen only about half the rainfall that it did during the same period last year. This has occurred in parallel with temperatures in Morocco increasing by an average of 1.8 degrees Celsius. In recent weeks, Moroccan authorities have restricted the opening of hammams or a bathhouse and car wash stations in several cities. They have prohibited the watering of golf courses or gardens, as the country's dams are only at 23% capacity compared to around 32% last year.
We have no source of water. Groundwater is very scarce. The dams are almost empty. There is nothing the farmers can do about this crisis.
The successive years of drought are compromising this agricultural season. Earlier, World Bank had said that this could potentially pull the economic growth below projection of the North African country, where a third of the population works in agriculture. Fearing the effects of the prolonged water scarcity, farmers had already reduced the size of areas in which they sowed cereal. Additionally, the sector also accounts for 14% of Morocco's exports, with exported produce seen as more profitable than that sold in domestic markets. So what can be done about this predicament? Well, some farmers are hoping to make up for the losses in previous seasons by adapting new sowing techniques such as planting seeds without ploughing the field first, allowing the soil to preserve its natural humidity. Irrigation has also become essential for the region.
Avec les problèmes de l'eau qui sont apparus dans les années 2000.
With the water problems that arose in the 2000s with successive years of drought, we developed a localized irrigation system called drip irrigation. We started to use it freely and it gave good results with Green Morocco.
On a commencé à utiliser ce produit.
Meanwhile, there is a new threat on the horizon for Australia's little penguins. Climate change coupled with biodiversity loss has exposed them to the threat of fire on the Phillip Island, and now before the summer becomes hotter, people are busy fireproofing the penguins' habitat. Phillip Island is home to Australia's largest little penguin colony. It houses around 40,000 little penguins. The worrisome factor for experts is how penguins respond to fire.
In previous fires in the colony, we've seen them just stay in their burrows until they succumb to the flames and to the heat. We've even seen penguins standing next to flame, preening their feathers.
Fires on the island are not a natural phenomenon, but has now become a part of its history since settlers started burning the land to farm during colonial times. With climate change inducing hotter summers, the risk has only increased. While penguins spend most of their lives in the ocean, they are tied to land during two critical times of the annual cycle: breeding and molting or shedding. Both of these periods coincide with the hottest parts of the year.
We're not just trying to improve habitat and address issues as a consequence of poor management actions in the past. But we're looking forward, so it's about climate change adaptation and building resilience into the landscape as well.
Local park rangers have been replacing flammable trees and plants with fire-retardant natives. The idea is to provide the little penguins with natural fire barriers and insulate their habitat against heat stress. 15,000 plants were put into the ground across 3 sites by volunteers, but at least 2 years will now be needed before they actually do their job as a natural fire barrier for the penguins' benefit. And that's a wrap on our climate segment. Stay tuned for other global stories coming up.